Welcome everybody. Today we're talking about some things that are considered normal or typical in the US, but outside of the US, they may not be so common. They may be even uncommon or even considered abnormal, strange, weird. So what's typical and common in the US might be considered weird or at least uncommon in other countries. That is what we're talking about today. Before we begin, everybody click that subscribe button. And after you subscribe, very important next step, make sure you also click the bell and select all. And that way you'll know when we upload future videos. Okay, so let's begin. Let's say hello to our guest, our friend Leon. How are you?
Good, good, Ben. Hey, everyone. How's it going? How are you, Ben? How's everything with you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And today we have a fun discussion about what might be considered normal or everyday or very typical in the US, but in other countries, people might think these things are really weird. Um, so, can you think of something that might be normal in the US, but to foreigners, they might think, really, that's kind of weird?
Nowadays, drinking alcohol at the age of 21, that considers normal to us. Maybe
Yeah,
other countries is like 18 or something, but they increased that age limit in United States. And also like smoking weed nowadays, I mean, that's considered legal in the US in certain parts of the state. So in
yes,
other
certain
countries, that's
states.
probably illegal, yeah?
Yes, yes, that's right. I guess Americans do drink a lot, isn't it? Don't they? We are a drinking people. We love drinking, and I know that it depends on the country. Maybe they don't drink as much, or maybe it's even against the law to drink alcohol, right? But in America, drinking is a big thing. Drinking alcohol, and it to the point where I think that it'll really affect your social relationships and professional relationships if you don't drink or don't know how to drink. What do you think? Do you think drinking is a very important part of our culture?
Oh, absolutely. I think when we drink in United States, it's more about the image, like you portray yourself like you're cool, everything is all right. And then we don't drink just for the enjoyment and the pleasure of it. We actually drink like a competition, like we binge, right? Especially if
Uh,
you're in college, it's like, how
yeah.
fast can you drink it? You binge drink, right? And other countries, it's more about just enjoyment and just drink in their own pace, nice, slow socialize. But I guess we Americans is we compete, like who can drinks the most, right? A competition kind of thing. Um, and also, like I said, it's more about the image. And if you're not drinking, it's like something's wrong with you. Why aren't you drinking? Kind of thing. I mean, what's your take on it?
Yes, I think that definitely there's two types of drinking, like the kind of drinking we do when we're younger in college, when we're partying. There's that kind of drinking, and then there's the kind of drinking that people do as when they get older, in their professional life, with coworkers, and for while they're networking and all that. So let's talk about firstly drinking when we're younger, when we're in college, when we're with friends and partying. And yeah, definitely, if you're young, you're in college, and if you want to sort of fit in, then yeah, you kind of do have to drink. Now I do realize that most of us, when we're in college, we're under 21, which is the minimum drinking age. However, you'll find American kids under 21 drinking rampantly. Most people find some way to get their hands on alcohol, even if they're under 21. And so college parties are infamous for excess, including alcohol. People drink to the point of literally just passing out or puking or whatever. But this is how American kids party. And it is very excessive. And I think that foreigners would look at us and think, oh my God, this is very sloppy. This is really gross. But this is sort of young American culture, college culture. I mean, is that what you encountered when you were in college as well?
Yeah, I mean, every time you're young, it always comes up to a game. When you play a game,
Yeah.
alcohol is always involved, right? So
Yeah.
you always, I hate going to parties because you have to play a game, and when you play games, it involves drinking. And like I said, they try to get you drunk. That's the name of the game, and this is the part I don't like because you get
Yeah.
all wasted and hammered, and I just hate doing that. So, but it's just part of the young culture and universities that we go through. I mean, like
Hmm.
I said, if you're not out there drinking, people are gonna question you, like you're not in the in crowd, you're not it, or um, you're just not one of them. I mean, that's why you see a lot of movies out there where you see things with colleges and schools and young adults. They're always partying and drinking and all that. So it's part of our culture. I mean, we'd hate to say it. Unlike people from other parts of the world, they really don't do that. They don't treat it as a competition. They don't drink as as a game. It's just more of drinking to socialize. That's it. Yeah, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, for example, what you guys see in movies of like American college campuses or kids partying and drinking and becoming sloppy, that's actually a very accurate representation of reality. I think that's how, kids are when it comes to partying and alcohol. And you're right. We or kids, younger people, really they kind of need to drink in order to fit in. Now, I don't think that it's a great thing to need to do anything you don't want to do. However, you can say that all as much as you want, but that's what young people do. They want to fit in. I think that is the unfortunate affliction and problem that young people face is that you can do what's right or you can do whatever you need to do to fit in, and a lot of people make the decision to do something maybe they don't want to do just to fit in. Now, I'm not saying that young people drink just to fit in. They also enjoy it. They also enjoy partying, and so there's that. But definitely there is a lot of drinking, and it is expected. That is the sort of the college that's sort of college life. And I think that when you say you don't drink, I think what happens is a lot of people are like, really? Right? Aren't people
Yeah.
surprised when you say you don't drink? Because I immediately go to, really? What happened? What's wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Why aren't you drinking? What happened
Yeah,
to you? I mean,
exactly. What
usually in
happened?
yeah, usually in colleges, I mean, everything you have to, you know, I, the fun part is that you always have to have like a fake ID, a fake driver's license that you can actually purchase your alcohol, whether it's through a grocery or supermarket or even at a restaurant. That's why they're always carding you, like, can I see ID every time you order something, alcohol. Other thing too, when you go with, if you have friends who's older than you, who's 21, that's also great too because they can buy the drink for you. If even if
Right.
you're in a club, you go to a club, your friend who's 21 will buy a beer, come back to you, give it to you, and then go back to the bar and buy another one for himself. So even though you were
Yes,
under 21, so this is very common in the US. Yeah.
that is common. But just don't let the bartender know that, oh, you're buying it for somebody else. Then
Yeah,
they're not going to sell it to you. But
exactly.
yes, that happens. Yes.
And they don't want to know either, right? Because
They
they can
don't
lose
want to
their
know. They want to
license.
make money.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Hmm.
when we were saying how we're very surprised when people don't drink, this is how common it is, right? Where when people say I don't drink, the first thing, two things go through our head. Were you an alcoholic? Are you in recovery? Or or
Yeah.
like, what's wrong? Like, there's
Something
always
bad.
something
Yeah.
happened, right? Yeah, so we
Uh-huh.
always think that.
Hmm.
That's how normalized drinking is and how expected it is. Now, of course, like we talked about, when we were younger, or young people, they drink a lot to the point of excess. When you get older and you're out in the working world, there's a different type of drinking. And that type of drinking is more social, it's very moderate, and you're not getting sloppy, but you want to drink just to be a participant. And I think that's very important. So, for example, if you are at a business lunch, with your colleagues and your boss, if or even lunch or dinner. So if your boss does not order alcohol, you don't order alcohol. But if your boss orders a glass of wine with their meal, you might want to do the same thing too, because professionally, it's good to sort of mimic what your boss is ordering and drinking and all that, right? Same number of courses, same beverages, right? So you drink if everybody else is drinking in social, but professional settings. And so I think that's
Yeah,
very
you.
important. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, you want to fit in, because
Right.
if you're not drinking, it's like they don't want to be around you because they're gonna think you're goody goody or you're too good for them, and goody two shoes, you consider you boring. So why am I going to hang out with you? Something's wrong with you. So
Yes.
that's the thing about feeling part of the group or being part of a social group. So yeah, I mean, going to work, normally we don't drink during working hours, even during lunchtime, because that's not a good thing. But like what Ben mentioned, if your boss orders a beer or some alcohol, it's okay for you to order, but you wouldn't want to be the first one to order. I mean, I ended up ordering one time because I was just like, you know what, I need a beer. And my boss was there and there was a bunch of groups. And I said, I want a Corona, got me a Corona and says, hey, you're drinking under the working hours. I say, yeah, it's just one beer. It's no big thing. And then my boss like say, okay, give me one beer too. So
Oh,
we ended
that's
up
funny.
three people having, a beer. I thought it was safe for me to do
Uh-huh.
it, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to use your own judgment. You just got to
Yes.
think that it's all right. Yeah. What about
Right.
you? Did you experience that like at work? And did you have any type of drinking during the working hours or lunchtime?
Um, no, no, I don't think so. However, like I actually never wanted to be under the influence around my colleagues because
Hmm.
I always wanted to be in control. That said, if they're ordering something, I'll order, an alcoholic drink. I'm just not going to drink it. I'm just going to very, very, lightly sip it, pretend I'm drinking it,
Uh-huh.
just to have it, just to look like I'm participating. But no, I absolutely need to be in full control if I'm in a professional environment. So I won't drink because
Even after office hours or like happy hour with
you
your
know,
colleagues, coworkers?
I didn't do a happy hour and after hours things with colleagues very much because I
Mm-hmm.
never worked in a place where I felt like I could trust anybody, and
Mm-hmm.
so I never wanted to let my guard down
Mm-hmm.
because like I've worked in big law firms where one of the things that one of the partners told me was the less people know about you the better. That's all he said. That this is all the
That's
guy
right.
said to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so that those are very those not very many words, right? But
Mm-hmm.
those words, they're very ominous. You know what I mean? So it really set the tone for you better be careful. So that's why.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I drink, I only have like one beer, that's it. Or one glass of whatever it is, whether it's one glass of wine or
Yeah.
one mixed drink, but that's it. Because like you said, you want to be in control. You don't want to
Hmm.
be like out of control and make a fool of yourself. And I want to know what my surroundings are. And then plus we have to drive back home, so I'm not going to be drinking a lot. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's just that the type of you know law firms, and it's very competitive. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
and I know a lot of careers are like that, but I never thought of anybody as my friend at work. I think that if anything, we're all frenemies because it's a zero sum gain, right? If they're going to
Yes.
become a partner at the law firm, that means you're not going to become a partner. So just I never trusted anybody. That's why I never wanted to lose control around anybody at work. I just keep that separate. Of course, we all have to pretend we like each other and like we're family, but at the same time, I'm thinking of course, at the same time, you're thinking, I really don't care about you. You know what I mean? But you have to play the
Right.
game, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key word. I mean, you got to play the game, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm the same way too. I go out with happy hour, they invite me. If they don't invite me, I don't go. But most of the time, though, I'm always getting invited and I go there like a Friday night. I don't get home till like 10 o'clock, maybe 9 p.m. But, they invite me. So, but I'm not, doesn't mean that they're my friend, they're my coworker, but I don't
Yeah,
hang out with them during the weekends and things like that. It's
yeah.
just one of those, occasions, but I never consider myself like really close friends to them. I'm just like you, just my coworkers and just try to say, okay,
Hmm.
everything is cool. Yeah.
I wonder for you guys, what is the okay, two questions. First of all, leave it in the comments. The first question is we've been talking about alcohol and how common it is in the US versus maybe in other countries. So I'd like to know in your country, is drinking alcohol common? Is it even permitted? Is it legal first of all? Do people partake? And do you guys drink a lot or at all? So leave your comment. We'd like to know. The other thing is please subscribe and make sure you also click the bell and select all so you'll know when we upload future videos. I hope you're also enjoying this video. And if you are, please give it a thumbs up. And then my next question is, we're talking about the work dynamic, and I think that maybe one of the things that you and I, Leon, have experienced is that it's very much a zero sum game. Like, people at work, they know how to play the game, especially in the corporate world, where that you might think that you're all friends, but in reality you're really just frenemies, right? And so I wonder
Yeah.
if that's the same in other countries as well. Do you guys really feel like you're working, like, when people say, "Oh, we're all a family," I feel like whenever people say family at a workplace, that's like, for me, that's a red flag, because whenever they say, um, this workplace is like a family, I'm thinking that means it's absolutely not like a family. Kind of like when somebody says, "Oh, I'm just a very simple person." Red flag. Nobody who's simple says they're just a simple person. That's a very complicated person saying that. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, you guys in your country, what is the work dynamic like? Is it do people really, do they actually like each other, or is it more like, yeah, everybody's just sort of playing the game? Because, like, Leon, when you were saying, um, we all know how to play. Americans are very good at playing the game in the corporate environment, right? Where everybody appears to get along and like each other. However, they're backstabbing you, and they've climbed over you, they've mopped you up as they're getting to the top, right? They use you to mop up the floor while they're getting to the top. That's kind of how it is in corporate America.
Yeah. I mean, my first job in a professional, first bank experience, I mean, I was young and I learned the hard way, got
Yeah.
backstabbed. I mean,
Yeah.
one
See.
person thought was your friend, and
Hmm.
next thing you know, you overhear them talking bad things about you and, lying things about behind your back. And I'm like, okay, that's the end of it. After
Yeah.
that, it's like you're very cautious of who is your friend or who you talk to and what you say to those people. So
Right.
you learn the hard way. So for me,
Yes.
it's like number one is protect your ass. I mean, that's the number one rule I've learned going in the corporate world. Yeah.
Yes. Uh, the corporate world in America is vicious, and it's definitely no place for the weak. And I think that, like, as you said, your experience is it's very much a zero sum game, and Americans know how to play the game. They know how to make it seem like you're all quote family, right? But at the same
Hmm.
time, um, they'll do what it takes to get ahead, because Americans are generally very ambitious, right? They all want to
Yeah.
climb that corporate ladder. So yeah, I think that's pretty normal, if strange, in America. So I'd like to know what it's like in your country. Um, so what else? What else is kind of normal in the U.S. versus,
Like nowadays,
yeah.
smoking weed, right?
Mm,
Legalized. Not all states are
that's
having to
right.
do that, but I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, a lot of Americans consider weed as normal. I mean, you see it in movies, you see it as young kids, even adults doing it in front of their kids, and it's okay. And
Hmm.
it's wild, right? So legalizing marijuana, when we say weed is a marijuana, but I've never smoked it. I smelled it, but I've never smoked any of the drugs. Never did any drugs. I don't know about you. If how was it like for you? Or I had friends who smoked marijuana or smoked weeds and did drugs. So, what about you? What's your experience with that?
Well, I think that weed being normalized or legal is not a bad thing. I'm just coming to it from the perspective of, we don't need to waste resources enforcing something like weed. That's why I think it's good that it's legal. Now, the fact that people are smoking it all the time, I don't care. You do whatever you want to do. I'm not really into telling people, don't not to do those things, because I even think I don't even care if you do drugs. But the thing of it is that I don't want to smell your drugs. I don't want to walk. Look, I've been in
Yeah.
hotels. I've been in hotels where, like, people are standing outside smoking weed, and it's just disgusting. The smell is not good, right? That's the thing about weed,
Yeah.
is the smell is not good, and I feel like it lingers even more than cigarettes. So I guess it's the issue of smoking and just being assaulted by your smoke. That's the only thing I'm not really fond of. But you can do your drugs responsibly, and when I say responsibly, I mean just stay home and just get wasted, and do whatever you got to do. If you OD, that's I don't care. Oh, that's fine too. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about you. but just do it in your home so I don't have to see it. I don't have to smell it. I don't have to, you know what I mean? That's all.
Yeah, for me, I had an experience where I had a coworker at the time, and he invited me out to go clubbing. And when I went, he ended up buying marijuana, and he lived in Hollywood, and he just bought it off like one of the street vendors, and like one of those drug dealers and selling drugs. And he bought marijuana and started rolling it up. And when we were in the car, he started smoking it, and I rolled down my window a bit, try to get some fresh air. He asked me if I wanted. I was like, no, no, thanks. And I wasn't really thinking about it at the time because I was young and, I could have been caught, like pulled over and probably been part of that. But that's something that I've never forgotten and never want to experience. I think nowadays, if that happened in my situation, I probably would have said something and say, hey, dude, smoke that while I'm not around you. You know, I don't want to be in that presence when you're smoking because I don't want to smell like marijuana. I don't want to smell like weed all over my clothes and myself. So I probably would have said something. Now, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a big stoner, and I mean to the point where, and this is what's really interesting. He works for he works for a very prestigious consulting firm, like top in the world, and he's very good at what he does. Excellent, excellent. And
Mhm.
he's such a stoner where I think that he could not function and perform at the level required at this
Mm.
company unless he's stoned. So like, I think he's stoned almost all the time. And yet
Wow.
he performs at a remarkably high level at a very prestigious law firm, not law firm, excuse me, a consulting firm.
Hmm.
And I've seen him when he's not stoned, and he's kind of a different person. And he seems almost more alert. Uh, well, obviously he does his job very well when he's stoned, and also that he's just funner to be around when he is stoned, which is very interesting. And yet, I don't know. I think that he probably wouldn't actually perform as well at work without being stoned. So it's a very strange thing, and I don't know what you guys think of that, or but yes, I guess some people do better when they're on drugs. Like it's very common with lawyers. They're really a lot of lawyers, especially in the 80s, right there. It's a big like 80s,
Mm.
90s cocaine, right? Lawyer, because
Yeah.
lawyers work
Yeah,
so
that's very
hard.
common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Cocaine. Yeah.
Professionals, yes.
Hmm.
Professionals, doctors, lawyers, professionals. These people perform at a very high level, but they're also big drug users.
Yeah. Well, they make so much money, they don't know what to do with the money. And then plus they party a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
heard, stereotyping, yeah.
Yes.
Cocaine, weed, drink, and going to parties and having lots of women. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Um.
Hmm.
So yeah. So how normalized weed has become now that nobody really cares. Um. And I think that to the point where in states where weed is not legal, the fact that it's illegal is vilified now. I feel.
Hmm. Especially in Hollywood, right? In LA. I mean, with being an attorney or uh, um, a doctor with that kind of money during the 80s and stuff like that. I mean, cocaine was a big thing. So can you imagine living in LA and having all that money and having all that, everybody wants to be in LA. So it's like being in the in crowd. Yeah. The party scenes, everything. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. All right. So what about this idea of worshiping our flag? And when I say worshiping, I mean we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like when we were kids, and I think they still do it in certain states or schools where there's like a minute or so at the beginning of class, and you say what's called the Pledge of Allegiance. You basically it's what is it, like a chant? I don't know if a chant sounds funny, but it's just like this little thing that you say that you're saying that I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, blah blah blah, and they do this. They put their palm to their chest, and they basically sort of worship the flag for like a minute by saying that, by reciting these words that are memorized. Most kids, American kids, know the Pledge of Allegiance is what it's called. And it's pretty normal in the U.S., although it's not every school district or not every state does it. But I wonder if in other countries, if they, do such a thing where kids pledge allegiance to their flag in school. What do you think of this idea of pledging allegiance to the flag? Do you think that's really weird?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what the people say in their country. I mean, do they listen to the music of their national anthem and to pledge to their flag? I mean, that'd be interesting how other countries do that. For us in the US, I mean, it was normal back then, but they had it stopped when I was like elementary. I think one of the students complained and
Oh,
complained to the mom, and the mom ended up complaining to the teacher principal, and they had it stopped. And then from that point on, we never did the Pledge of Allegiance. I think is great. I think we should do this to all schools. The reason is because it shows patriotism and also the being loyal to your, America, to the United States, your country. And I think it should be brought back to the, to the schools, to the educational school district. I mean, because you have a lot of Americans that burn flags and talk bad things about US, and I think they're pretty lost. And because of what the society and social media is, you know, uh, talking about United States, I think we need to bring that back. Um, Patriotism is the best thing about, because you're living in that country, you got to be proud of where you're living, just like any other country. And yeah, I mean, we kind of, I'd hate to use the word worship or being a cult type thing, but it's similar to it. I mean, I like the idea. I mean, I'm American. I don't see nothing wrong with it. Maybe other people may feel differently, and I like to hear what they think about it. I mean, what about you? What's your take on it?
I think that if it's a public school, sure. I think if it's a private school, I think they should have some leeway to decide whether it's right for them. But I guess
Mm.
if it's state funded or government funded, I guess there's more of a reason to do the Pledge of Allegiance. But of course, um, okay, so the Supreme Court ruled, this was years ago, back in the 40s, actually, that you cannot require a student to recite the Pledge of Allegiance or salute the flag, as it violates their First Amendment rights, the rights to the freedom of speech and religion. So, okay, that's good that you can't require it. So, like that kid in your class who protested, who didn't like doing the Pledge of Allegiance. That's fine. So he can be excused from doing it. But I think they should have still continued to do it, just allowed people the option of not doing it. But I guess if you're then the one kid sitting out the Pledge of Allegiance, then you look kind of weird too, right? Because
Yeah, I think the reason why he complained is because his English wasn't good, or he
oh,
couldn't
okay.
say the Pledge of Allegiance. So
Oh, that's
because this
funny.
is elementary, so I think he complained because he couldn't say the things, and he complained to his mom, and his mom complained to the principal, and it just
Uh,
started from there. Me personally, I think it should be mandatory. I mean, I may get heat for it.
uh-huh.
People may not like me for it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Put your comments, because for
Yes.
me, being as an American, growing up in America, being born in America, I mean, it means a lot. Even
Yeah.
if you become a U.S. citizen, it means a lot. That means you're showing your true devotion of where that country you're living, right?
Hmm.
For me, it's like, it's strange too for us Americans. We will die for our country, like the flag. And a lot of people can't understand that and say, "You're gonna die for your own flag? What does that has to do with anything? We're not gonna die for our flag." But a lot
Hmm.
of us Americans, we will die for our flag, or our American, because it shows the freedom of who we are and as American, and the proudness of it. But a lot of foreigners can't understand that. I don't know. What's your take on that? But I'd love to hear what other people say about it, because they think that Americans are crazy for, die for your flag, die for your country. They haven't given me anything. Why am I going to die for that flag or something? So, but
Hmm.
a lot of Americans feel this way.
Yes, that's true. Well, we really love our flag. I mean, it makes its way not only it is of course a flag and the flag of our country, but just the flag, the American flag makes its way to many other things as well, like even to the clothes we wear. We have a lot of people wear clothes with the flag, or they have maybe stickers, something on their car with the American flag or something like that. It's kind of everywhere. I don't know if like when, foreigners.
Tattoos.
Yes, tattoos. Yes. When
Hmm.
foreigners visit our country and they see that the flag is everywhere, I wonder. Does that make you think that, oh, that's really weird, that why is the flag everywhere? But it is everywhere, from the clothes we wear to the actual flags that are hanging and all that. So it is everywhere.
Yeah. I don't see
Um,
nothing wrong with it, but people
no,
think
there's
it's
nothing
weird
wrong
that
with
we're
it.
having. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it because everybody in is patriotic uh, for their own country, and they support their own country. It's pretty typical. I mean, you live in Brazil. I'm living in Southern Europe right now. I'm in Spain right now, and yeah, there are flags everywhere. Italy, let me tell you something. It's interesting. Like I was driving around the countryside in Italy, and I even saw bales of hay that were in the flag of the color of their flag, just hay that they've
Mm.
bound up. So, you know, on trucks they have lights that are the colors of their flag. So it's everywhere. Every country does that.
Yeah. And when you're in the US too, if you're wearing an American flag and people see it, you can have a smile on their face. A lot of
Yes.
Americans, when they see you're wearing a flag, US flag, they're gonna smile. So this is another
Yeah.
thing. In other countries, you're wearing your country's flag, you're not gonna get any smile. You're just gonna say, "Oh, okay, it's a normal thing." But
Right.
for us, it means a lot. Yeah.
Yes. And look at my picture. I have the American
Yeah,
flag on my picture.
right.
There you go.
Me too. I mean, my background is the American flag, so
Ah, yes, I
yeah,
can see it. Yes, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
see, there you go. I guess. Oh, we're so American that we we have the American flag in our DP.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the idea of like okay, so school shootings. Okay, I'm not going to say that it's the norm in that it happens all the time, but it happens enough that it's very much on our minds, and it's something where we need to protect against. So it's gotten to the point where I think that some school districts have started to implement metal detectors. They want to stop weapons from coming into the schools, and I feel like this is very much an American thing. I'm not certain, but I feel like in other countries, they're not looking for weapons in kids and guns in kids' book bags, backpacks. I mean, right? Do you think?
Yeah.
Let us know in
No.
the comments. But yeah, what do you think, Leon?
Yeah, it's a normal for us. I mean, we do a lot of drills, like shooting drills, coming to the school
Hmm.
nowadays. But like bigger cities like New York, they already have the security, like the metal detectors. This is going back since probably in the 90s. So these bigger schools, people get their locker rooms searched, just randomly searched by
Ah, uh-huh.
security guards. So this is a normal thing in the US. Yeah, your backpack gets also checked when you enter the premise of the schools. And these are happening already in the 90s in New York. I'm sure it happens to
Mm-hmm.
other places like there's lots of violence, like San Francisco. I think that's a norm too. Probably Chicago. LA, I didn't see it too much, but it does happen in certain parts of LA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it definitely varies between school districts and states. However, what's interesting is like, um, there are certain cities where it is very dangerous and they're not great. They're very unsafe, right? These cities. But when you hear about these mass shootings, they're not always in those kind of cities. Oftentimes, they're in places where you're like, wow, I'm kind of surprised it happened in this sleepy town. You know what I mean? Where not a lot
Hmm.
happens. So
Hmm.
you never know. So there's that. I'm not saying that, if you go to school in the US, you're going to encounter a school shooting. It's a bit like getting struck by lightning. But I think
Yeah.
that, right, but it's shocking enough that when it happens, there's a huge ripple effect, and a lot of other, things will happen. It'll happen as well. And also, it sort of makes us feel like, oh my God, like it just needs to happen once for it to be really seared in our minds that, oh, this is a distinct possibility, when in fact, it's really not that likely.
Hmm. I mean, I like to hear from other people. I mean, how's their schools in their countries? Do they have metal detectors? Do they check backpack? Do they randomly check lockers?
Right. Right.
Maybe they don't even have lockers. I mean, I like to hear what other people say in their country.
Yes, leave a comment. And also, while you're doing that, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Let us know that you like this video. Help support it. We would really appreciate it. And also, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button. And very important next step, make sure you also click the bell. The bell is right next to the subscribe button. Click on that and select all. That way, YouTube will show you future videos we upload. Um, when we were kids, Leon, I felt like they did random locker searches, if at all, to find drugs. Now they're doing it to
Yes,
find weapons. Is that right?
right.
Yeah,
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
it's really
Yeah, that
changed.
is so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
What about another thing, like as they say, like buying and selling children, but I don't mean literally like that. It's like the adoption, right? Having
yes.
adoptions in the US. I mean, what's your take on the adoption in United States? Because it's pretty norm for us Americans having adoptions
Yeah.
or adopting children.
It right is it's not uncommon, and I didn't realize this, but the U.S. I did look it up, and the U.S. Has the most adoptions of any country in the world. So let me give you just some statistics. So if we're talking about inter-country adoptions, inter-country meaning people from the U.S. would adopt babies from other countries, inter-country, right? Other countries. Okay, so for example, in 2022, 1,500 adoptions, over 1,500 adoptions, inter-country adoptions in the U.S. And that's number one. The U.S. is number one with the most, 1,500 inter-country adopting babies from other countries. Second place was had 200 something. So that's a big difference. That's a big gap from number one to to the second position, right? That would be Colombia. Third is India, 200 something. Then South Korea, 100 something. Bulgaria, less than 100. So yeah, Americans adopt a lot of babies from other countries, and even within the U.S., Americans adopt. Let me see if I can find you a statistic here. Okay, so in 2021, 54,000 adoptions within the country, adopting babies that are from the U.S. And again, that is the highest number of any other country. So I guess you're right. Yeah, Leon, Americans. I mean, they like to adopt kids. It happens quite a bit in the U.S. It's not uncommon. I'm not going to say it's common because it's not like 54,000 or 1,500 is a huge number, but it's definitely not uncommon. But what is it like in other countries? What is your take on this? What does this mean about the U.S. that we're adopting, babies inter-country?
Yeah, it shows that we accept people from different parts of the world, right? It's not just the Americans. So uh, we are considered nice people or nice Americans. We're not just focusing on our own, but
Yes,
also
helpful.
internationally. So that tells you a lot. Yeah, very
Mhm.
helpful. We donate. We have a high charity. Uh, we're probably the most giving countries out there. I don't see any other countries out there as giving a lot to international. So even though we are considered what you people say we're violent and prejudice and discrimination, but yet you got to consider the good things about us, which is, the donations, the charity, giving money, and we're the number one country out there that does it. So the adoptions, yeah, I mean, if you look at it, why did a lot of Americans adopt? Well, we just indicated, and also I think is because the government gives them a tax write-off. Like for every children they make, they probably make maybe 1,200, 1,500 credit for every, child that they adopt. So that's why you see a lot of Americans may have more than three or more than four kids that they adopt because technically they don't even have to work. They just adopt kids and they're funded by the government. So you do see a lot of Americans that are like that. And then also part of that is the religious, like especially if you're in Christian and maybe the Mormons, maybe I don't know,
Mhm.
but they do a lot of good deeds, and adoption happens to be one of them. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Americans are, I think that whenever you are successful, if you're making a lot of money, if you have a lot of wealth, I think that there's a lot of expectations. There's high expectations of you to help others, whether it be, adopting children or, doing charity, philanthropy. I think that that's definitely on the minds of Americans. From even your typical middle class American, right? You either you're not able to have kids or you want to do good, and so you might adopt. So I think that, like sometimes people will say, when America is doing well, the world is doing well. So there's that.
hmm And even look at the celebrities, like big names, Angelina Jolie, Madonna. I mean, these are two top celebrities that adopted internationally. So
Yes.
imagine that. I mean, that's just two celebrities. I'm sure there's a lot of people more celebrities that does this, and as well as rich people and middle class people. Yeah.
Hmm. And what do you think of this criticism that American or in America, our government spends way too much money on weapons and defense, uh, while at the same time we have so many, let's say, veterans or even just non-veterans, but just people who are in such dire economic straits, that why are we spending so much to build up this arsenal that we may never use? We're building up defenses that maybe people have criticized, saying it's not necessary, but we have people in our country that are homeless, so many people who are homeless, who have no money, who are starving. Why are we spending our money like that? I don't know if that how normal that is compared to other countries, where if your people are hungry, you're not diverting money to that, but at the same time you're spending so much money on defense. Is that a good thing? Is that normal? Because it certainly is normal in America, right?
Yeah, I think it's because it's about the money, right? The government makes money. I mean, if you look at it, probably the number one exporting product or anything in United States is weapon. Weapon, I believe, is the number one exporting product that we do, and it's exported by the government, the U.S. government. They have these weapons, and they're selling it to other war-torn countries that they support. And it's sad as it sounds, but I think the number one product that we sell is weapons. Like I said, it's more about the profit. The government makes money out of it, and so they're going to continue to produce. But also based on our history, I mean, you look at from the Civil War, right? It all started from there when we against internally, right? Um, the Confederate and the U.S. government. It's always been that way, and World War One, World War Two. You got the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and it just the list goes on. So we have a huge background of history of war, and that's why we really emphasize a lot on our military and our weapons, because we don't want to be conquered. We don't want to be invaded.
Hmm.
So we are considered the police of the world, which I kind of disagree, because we shouldn't police all the world because they have their own beliefs and their own democracy and government rulings and their beliefs. So I don't know why we have to shove down democracy in their throat. I don't think we should do that, but to each his own. But for me, I don't think we should focus more on putting the police in the world. I think we should focus more on our own fellow Americans who are suffering, and like the veterans, the war veterans, and also the homeless people. I think we need to correct this first before we do anything else. That's me personally. I don't know about what's your take on it.
Yeah, I think that we definitely need to maintain a strong position and strong defense in our country. However, I think it does need to be balanced with some spending for our people as well, for their day-to-day well-being. And just to give you an idea of how much uh, we've exported. So here's a statistic. In 2023, U.S. weapons exports reached a record high, totaling 238 billion. God, that's a lot.
Wow. Yeah, you see?
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah.
And this figure includes both government-to-government sales, which amounted to 81 billion, and direct commercial sales. And like for example, we have okay, so key recipients of U.S. arms include European countries such as Poland and Germany, which have significantly increased their military procurement in response to regional threats. So we're providing lots of weapons to other countries, especially in Europe. Right now, Ukraine, right? So.
Hmm. Yeah. And part of us too. I mean, like NATO, for example. I do believe that we should be part of NATO, but I don't think we should fund so much money in NATO and also our military. I think it needs to be equal. When we give money to NATO, all the other countries that belongs there should do the same. I mean, there are countries that cannot because they're not as rich as United States in terms of money wise, currency and all that. But do the percentage. I mean, if we're giving like say 30% of the money to fund NATO, all the other countries should give 30%, should be an equal thing. Same thing as number of troops. If we're giving like 30% of our troops, the other people should also give 30% of their troops. So, but I don't think it's happening with the NATO. So, I think fair is fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very disproportionate just because the US is so big and there's so much abundance here that the whole world looks to us as their sort of their ATM machine, you know? They come here to
Yeah, and
get.
that's the problem. ATM machine, what they would get money, but yet if they're policing, they don't want to be policed by US and they start saying bad things about it. So, but they want our money. So, which
They
is
sure
it?
do.
Yeah.
They want our
Mhm.
resources because we're a unique
Yes.
country in that not only are we big, but we have natural resources, right? We're energy independent, which to a certain extent, and also when you're when you have independence like that, energy independence, and you have natural resources, it places you in a unique position that I've noticed. Um, countries in Europe, they're not energy independent, and that when you don't have things like energy independence, it really governs how day to day how your people live. And so that's why when you're in America, you have this distinct feeling. It's very uniquely American. This distinct feeling of abundance, and that it's okay. You don't need to worry about it. Whereas
Hmm.
you don't necessarily feel like that in other countries because they are completely dependent on other countries to get their energy, their gas, or whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
how about one more, and then we can wrap
Okay.
up. Let's
How
see.
about credit score? Credit
Oh,
score is a big thing. It's the normal
yeah.
for us, right? Having a
Mhm.
credit score. I mean, if uh if a person that moved to United States, you're not going to have any credit score, you know.
Right.
If you do have something, everything is going to be paid in cash until you build up that credit history.
Yeah.
Without credit history, you're pretty much considered a nobody in the US, right? In terms of that, yeah, credit score.
Yeah. And so what is the credit score? It's a number. It's a number, like it's a score. It's literally a score, like a test score assigned to each person. And there's a record of your credit score, which is based on how good are you at paying back money that you borrowed. So either on your credit card, on a car loan or whatever, there's a number, there's a score. And that score follows you everywhere into everything you do. I mean, you can't even rent an apartment if you have a bad credit score. They're going to want more money from you up front or whatever. And so it's very important to have a good credit score. And I think that is what's really interesting is that credit score is so important um, because it shows how likely you are to pay it back, right? Not how much money you have, because you can be a person with a lot of money, but you can also have a very low credit score. I know people like this. They make a lot of
Yeah,
money, but they have a low credit score. Not because they're not able to pay back their debt, but they're always late or they're not reliable in paying back their debt, right? So a creditor, whoever's going to loan you money, lease you the car, give you a mortgage for your house, they want to know they're getting their money back. They don't care how much money you have. They just want to know that no matter how you pay them, you're going to pay them back reliably. And so let me give you an example. So, like in Southern Europe, in Spain, in Italy, if you get a car loan or a mortgage or whatever, what they're really obsessed with is that you have a job contract, because to them, if you have a job contract with an indefinite time period, like in other words, uh, your job, first of all, we don't really have job contracts in the US. It's not a common thing. It only exists at the higher, more like C level or very high level, right? Most people, you're an at-will employee. You can be fired at any time. But anyway, that's another story, topic. But anyway, so in Italy, if you want to get a car loan, a home loan, or whatever, they're obsessed with you having a job contract that shows no end date, and that for them is enough. They're obsessed with you having a job. Whereas in America, yeah, you need to have a job, but that doesn't mean that you're going to pay the money. That doesn't mean you're going to pay it back, right? But for Italians and Spanish creditors, that's what they care about. That if you have a job, that must mean they make that leap. They make that conclusion that must mean you're low credit risk and that you're going to pay it back. Whereas to Americans, just because you have a job doesn't mean anything. It just means you're going to have money, but it does not mean that you're going to pay back the loan, right? So very different. That's why Americans rely on credit score. We want to see that you have paid it back, not only that you have a job.
Yeah, and especially if you're making late payments. If you're making late payments, that's going to really reduce your credit score, and you don't want that because
Yes.
when they start looking at your history and you're making late payments and penalties and all that, they may not approve you for it. So make sure that you're never late on your payment. And then also, of course, pay interest, a little bit of interest. Doesn't have to be a lot. If
Yeah.
you're there paying every month and not paying interest, your score isn't going to go up as much. They really don't want that because they want you to be paying interest because that's how they're going to say, okay, your score is up, you're paying interest, you're not late,
Hmm.
so we're going to give you that money or that amount that you need. So make sure to build up that credit score. You just have to pay interest. Just I don't mean like to get yourself in debt, but
Hmm.
just make sure it's you're paying a little bit of interest and you're paying it on time. Yeah.
Yeah, and Americans are very clever in that they're, again, very capitalistic. We are, and so what happens is even if you have a low credit score, you can still get a car loan. You can still get a car lease. You'll just pay more. So they might ask for more of a down payment, a higher down payment, right? Because if your
Hmm.
car's, let's say your car's $20,000, if they make you put a $10,000 down payment, they're thinking you're probably not going to lose the car over a non-payment if you've already sunk $10,000 into it. And if you fail to make that payment, actually, it's even better for them because they now own your car, they can sell it, and they can be in positive, right? Because you put such a big down payment, right? So Americans also know they've turned it into a business where they actually like lending to people who have a bad credit score in a way because they make you pay so much more, it's almost criminal sometimes.
Yeah.
And right, but it's a great business because they've already built into the whole thing that they're already counting on you to default, which means they're already counting on you to not pay back. But they've gotten so much money from you up front, or they make you pay such a high monthly payment that they're not worried if you don't pay, if you suddenly don't pay. Yeah, right, because they're going to own your house, they're going to own your car, and they're actually not in a bad position because they've gotten so much money from you up front. Whereas, like here in Europe, they're obsessed with the job contract, and if you don't have that, they just won't give you the. Okay, so for example, I wanted to lease a car here, and because I don't have a job contract, right? They're like, no, we can't lease the car to you. I'm like, if you want, I can pay for the entire lease up front. In other words, if I'm leasing the car for 36 months, 3 years, I can give you the entire amount. I can give you the $20,000 upfront. So, which means my monthly payment would be zero. I pay for the whole thing all at once. Still no good. They want a job
Wow.
contract, which is
Wow.
really bizarre. Like, what's like they're
Uh-huh.
so obsessed with the job contract. Like, it means so much to them. Whereas for Americans, it doesn't mean all that much to us that you have a job. It means more to us that you have credit that shows that you are able to pay it back. I mean, this is crazy because in America, even if you have the worst credit, if you're paying the entire lease, if you're paying the entire amount, they would hand you that car right
Yeah.
away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but here, nope, they're like, no, you can't pay the whole thing up front. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? That
Wow.
is so. I think that certain things are, to me, is extremely strange and it's really bad business, but it's normal here. It's abnormal in the US.
Yeah, because you can like lose your job, and then also even though you have a job,
Yeah,
you think you're gonna pay your car payment as your first priority. No, your first priority is gonna be your house or your apartment or something like that.
sure.
And then of course your food, your family and all that before even the car. So even though you have a job, doesn't mean that you're gonna pay that car. So
Yeah,
that's what the Americans are thinking. Yeah.
it's
Most important is are you paying on time? Are you late?
are you
These are the
yeah.
things that's important. Yeah.
Yes, are you paying on time? Because just because you have a job contract that doesn't expire, which is what Europeans are looking for, to Americans, that does not mean anything. Because look, here's the thing. I guess it's just very much a different world because in America, we don't necessarily believe in being tied to our jobs. We might want to move around, get, go to a different company or whatever. So first of all, even as an employer, we don't necessarily want to stay with a company forever. But here, people want to. I guess they really value so things that are in perpetuity that like last forever. But I guess that's also part of the difference with Americans is that we embrace change, whereas what I feel, this is my opinion, I feel like people here in Southern Europe, they don't really embrace change. They
Yeah.
prefer to know that it's going to last forever because I think it has something to do with the fact that they have such a long storied history. They live very much still looking in the rear view mirror as opposed to looking ahead. Whereas America, you really can't look too far back because our country doesn't go that far back, right? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
everybody in America is looking forward, not backward, and that's the difference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, on that bombshell, we're going to end it here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you're here, you're still here and listening, I'm guessing you liked it. So please do give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video. And also make sure you subscribe and also click the bell and select all. That way you'll know when we upload future videos. Thank you so much for joining us, Leon. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone. Ciao. Till next time.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.